Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about the Bottle City of Kandor, Brainiac, Kryptonian powers, Sunstone, Superman, the Superwomen, and just all sorts of stuff. But before we get into it, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and be sure to leave us a comment. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. Thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one takes place in the deepest regions of space, where a celestial phenomenon occurs only once in a millennium: the utter destruction of a star. Into the seething inferno of unimaginable energies streaks a desperate man of steel who prays that the death of one world can spell new life for another. Superman is caught in an explosion 100,000 times more powerful than that of an ordinary nova. Superman gathers the energy into a device that he built using his super intelligence. Then he flies back to the Fortress of Solitude, where Supergirl has her own apartment off to the side. She walks out as Superman addresses the Science Council of the Bottle City of Kandor. He tells them that according to his calculations, the energy captured in this device, combined with an element known as Ilium 349, will reverse the effects of Brainiac's shrinking ray. But in order to test it, they will have to try it out on something else that is shrank the exact same way, for fear that if Superman's gadget doesn't work, it might be the end of Kandor and everyone living within the city's confines. And so, Superman builds a beeper that is attuned to Brainiac's electronic brainwaves. It emits an ultra high frequency that seeks him out no matter where in the universe he is. So Superman activates it, saying it won't be long before Brainiac comes for him. Not long after that, at Jimmy Olsen's anniversary party at work, celebrating his many years of service to the Daily Planet, from humble beginnings as a cub reporter to now running the place, there's an earthquake. And as people panic, Clark Kent excuses himself, then rips his shirt open, revealing the Superman logo, and it's up, up, and away. As Superman flies over Metropolis, he comes face to face with Brainiac's starship. He enters it, and Brainiac orders Superman to deactivate that irritating signal that he built. They fight, and Brainiac has had a few upgrades since last they did battle. So Superman flies into space and grabs a huge asteroid that he throws at Brainiac's starship. Brainiac fires the shrinking ray at the asteroid. Superman smashes the asteroid first, though, and the shrinking ray strikes Superman. Brainiac fires the shrinking ray again, but this time the beam is deflected by Supergirl and reflected back into Brainiac, and he shrinks so small that he can't be seen by the human eye. Supergirl comments that Brainiac was defeated by his own device, and Superman says they can't worry about that now. They have an entire city full of Brainiac's victims who need to be enlarged as soon as possible. So Superman and Supergirl hurry back to the Fortress of Solitude, where they use the ray on Superman, and it works with no ill effects. So, using their super speed and super intelligence, Superman and Supergirl quickly build a spacecraft, then head off through the stars to coordinates selected by the Kandorian known as Van Z. Once there, they clear an area and set the city of Kandor down in the middle of it. Then they enlarge the city. Silently, Superman and Supergirl step away from the city, which sparkles like a priceless diamond in shimmering sunlight. The last surviving city of Krypton expands, its great gleaming towers straining for the sky, and Kandor lives again. When the dust has finally settled, the man called Kal-El and the woman called Kara stride triumphantly into the only remnant of the planet of their birth, to be greeted by cheering and the warm welcome of family and friends. It's a moment of rejoicing, a moment of thanksgiving, a moment when mere words cannot begin to describe the flood of emotions. For Supergirl and her parents, Zor-El and Allura, it is a moment of tender reunion. Zor-El tells Kara he's proud of her. Allura says that Kara doesn't know how long she's longed for this day. Kara tells them she loves them, but she has a life of her own now on Earth, and she doesn't want to move here. Nearby, for Superman, it's a melancholy moment, as he wishes his own biological parents could have lived to see this. The planet is dubbed Rokin, aka New Krypton. Which brings us to the main plot. After some time on Earth, Superman returns to New Krypton, where he visits his uncle Zor-El and his aunt Allura. They tell him that they've been elected to the Science Council. They also talk about the different Kryptonian houses and how they are from the science class. They point out some bunkers and mention the House of Zod. Superman asks about that, and Zor-El explains that General Zod is considered a war hero by many for his valiant battle against Brainiac. Superman says that in 1961, General Zod escaped from the Phantom Zone and did quite a bit of damage in Metropolis. And because of that, there will be people on Earth who don't trust Kryptonians other than Superman and Supergirl. Superman says he wants the people of Earth to know the Kryptonians can be trusted, and as such, he wants to bring them to Earth. So, using a mother box, he opens a boom tube to Earth and takes them to meet President Ford. Zor-El and Ford shake hands, but just then, the galactic golem shows up. Superman and the other Kryptonians fight the massive villain as the president is ushered off to safety, and the galactic golem is defeated. But the Kryptonians are now aware of how dangerous things can be. And since the golem was made by Lex Luthor a couple years ago, they are also aware of Superman's rogues gallery now as well. Meanwhile, at the Cavern of a Thousand Lakes, Lucy Lane Olson goes for a dip, then puts on her Superwoman costume and flies to Arlington National Cemetery, where she places flowers on the grave marked General Sam Lane. Soon after, though, Sam Lane, who's secretly alive and well, enters the prison where Lex Luthor is currently located, and he informs Luthor that he works for Uncle Sam now. And Luthor is going to create more weapons like the Galactic Golem, capable of killing Kryptonians. Just then, Commander Gore of New Krypton arrives and demands the prison give them the villain known as the Parasite. The humans refuse, so Gore and the other Kryptonians attack the humans, then make off with the special container that they keep the Parasite in. Sam Lane sees this and tells Luthor that this is what they're up against. Luthor says this is what they've always been up against. Meanwhile, a Bizarro visits the cemetery in Smallville to leave flowers on Ma and Pa Kent's grave when he is attacked by Kandorians, who beat him to a pulp, then throw him in the Phantom Zone. When he wakes up, he finds himself surrounded by Superman's rogues gallery, as well as the hero known as Mon-El, who was placed in the Phantom Zone years ago until a cure could be found for the fatal disease that he has. Superman returns to New Krypton, where the Kandorians now have Brainiac's ship as well as the microscopic villain himself. The Kandorians argue about what to do with Brainiac, and Superman yells at them for attacking prison guards. Allura, mother of Supergirl, defends their actions by giving Superman a tour of Brainiac's starship. They come to a series of objects that resemble red glass eggs, and each of these huge eggs contains one of Brainiac's DNA experiments. She shows Superman one such victim, a being known as Ultra, the multi alien. Before Brainiac got a hold of him, he was an astronaut from Earth named Ace Arn. But now he's a misshapen freak with mismatched body parts and the DNA of countless alien life forms. Superman insists that she free them from these red containers, and Allura says she'd like to, but it would trigger a self destruct code laced throughout Brainiac's starship. So, in an attempt to get the code out of Brainiac's head, the Kryptonians use an interface device, which turns out to be a pretty big mistake. The red pods do open, but countless Brainiac robot drones pour in from all directions as Brainiac's mind is uploaded. The Kryptonians, with the help of Ultra the Multi-Alien, fight the robots, but one of them kills Zor-El. During the fight, a boom tube goes off, and some Kryptonian technology known as Sunstone appears in the skies over Ohio, close to where Superman first appeared. It falls to Earth, landing in a field where it is found by some kids. Back on New Krypton, Allura is furious that her husband is dead, and she basically says the universe is a dangerous place, so the Kandorians need to go on the offensive. Superman does not like what he's hearing. Meanwhile, in Danville, Ohio, just east of Cleveland, two women in their mid-20s named Lisa Jennings and Barbara Briggs find a piece of Kryptonian sunstone. And when they pick it up, it gives them the same powers as a Kryptonian. At almost that exact same time, Kristen Wells comes to this era from the 29th century, because according to the records of the future, this is when several mysterious superwomen were sighted. Kristen is the descendant of Jimmy Olsen. Meanwhile, Jimmy's wife, Lucy Lane Olsen, is flying with Kara Zor-El, talking about what happened to Kara's father. Kara is upset, and Lucy tells her that she is extremely sorry to hear of his passing. But tensions between Earth and New Krypton are through the roof right now, so Kara needs to calm down. To nobody's surprise, telling Kara to calm down doesn't calm her down at all. And since Superman told her the same thing, Kara rips the S off of her costume and starts going by the name Power Girl. A little time passes, and the Kandorians pay a visit to the Justice League of America. The JLA says the situation is getting out of hand, and Superman says he knows that, but they have to let him handle it. But diplomacy fails, and the heroes fight. And in the end, it's Power Girl who manages to knock out Superman. The rest of the Justice League lose to the Kryptonians, and the Kryptonians of Kandor use boom tubes to leave. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor is at Area 51 doing an autopsy on the galactic golem. Sam Lane comes in to check on his progress, and Luthor tells Lane they're up against the end of the world unless they turn Luthor loose. Lex wants them to give him access to all of his old equipment. Sam Lane says no, and Luthor attacks him, which ends up with Lane putting a gun to Luthor's head. But Lex Luthor tells Sam Lane that shooting him would be a bad idea because Lex Luthor's brain is humanity's last hope. Back on New Krypton, Allura opens the Phantom Zone and brings out Non, Ursa, and Zod. And the first thing Zod wants is to speak with Superman. So some Kandorians bring Kal-El to Zod, who tells him that with all of his combat experience, Superman would make a good addition to Zod's military guild. Superman says he doubts that Zod's true motivation, but Zod insists putting Kryptonians first has always been his primary motivation. He says what puts him at odds with Superman's father was them disagreeing over how to accomplish this, but that in the end, they wanted the same thing. Zod tries to appeal to the fact that Superman is a father too. Zod comments that now that he and Ursa are out of the Phantom Zone and can touch each other again, starting a family is a big priority for him, and he wants his son to live in a world that is safe. Zod walks away to go spend time with his wife and maybe even conceive his son, Lord Zod, while Superman says to himself that Zod's idea of a safe universe is a conquered universe. Superman then goes to see his aunt Allura, and she informs him that his guild has been chosen for him, and they've decided to place him in the military guild working for Zod. Meanwhile, on the planet Oa, the Guardians of the Universe hold a meeting to discuss New Krypton. Back on Earth, now that Brainiac has a new body, his ship abducts the 4 Superwomen: Barbara Briggs, Kristen Wells, Lisa Jennings, and Lucy Lane. And he places them in those red glass eggs where he takes the same DNA that he stole from Kal-El to grow himself a new clone body. Starting with Barbara Briggs, he performs artificial insemination with the DNA of Kal-El. And after he's done with her, Kristen Wells is next. One of Brainiac's robot drones attempts to abduct Power Girl, but she defeats it, then uses her mother box to open a boom tube to New Krypton, where her mother is at a high society gala. Power Girl finds Superman here and tells him what happened. So Zod tells the military guild to mobilize, that Brainiac is back. The Kandorians want revenge, so they suit up and they go through boom tubes to Earth, where they meet up with Superman Red and attack Brainiac's ship, just as Lisa Jennings undergoes the procedure. The only one not pregnant now is Lucy Lane. The Kryptonians fight their way through hordes of robots into Brainiac's ship. They free the women, and Zod becomes aware that several women from Earth are now pregnant with half Kryptonian embryos, which worries Superman because he doesn't know if Zod will see these babies as quote unquote half breeds and want to destroy them because of his prejudice, or will he see the Kryptonian powers the women have and demand the children be raised on New Krypton under Zod's watchful eye? And worse yet, in a way, these are Kal-El's babies and not with Lois. So he's upset about that. Before anyone can do anything, though, call comes in from New Krypton that the Labor Guild has been forced to work around the clock for quite some time now, and due to their job dissatisfaction, they've taken hostages. So Zod, Kal-El, and the rest return to New Krypton, where one of Zod's men tries to shoot the leader of the Labor Guild. But Superman Red catches the bullet because he's one of the few people who has powers under the red sun of New Krypton. Allura congratulates Superman Red for handling the situation, and Power Girl introduces him as her fiance. But before much else can be said, the Green Lantern Corps shows up and tells Zod that he's under arrest. General Zod says he does not answer to Oa. The Green Lanterns say he has no choice, and a fight breaks out. But Hal Jordan brought his best friend, the fastest man alive, Barry Allen, who is carrying a brand new Phantom Zone projector that Batman made. And before anybody can really do anything, Barry runs around under the red sun, tagging people before they can react. General Zod and most of the military guild are placed back in the Phantom Zone, along with Ursa, who is now pregnant with Lord Zod. And nobody realizes it, but Ursa had a piece of jewel kryptonite hidden on her person when she was sent into the zone. And jewel kryptonite is famous for allowing Phantom Zoners to affect the real world while they are imprisoned in the Phantom Zone. Which brings us to the epilogue, which takes place in 1976. Kristen Wells gives birth to a daughter named Jamie, who has red hair like her ancestor, Jimmy Olsen. Ursa gives birth to Lord Zod in the Phantom Zone. And on Earth, Barbara gives birth to Christopher Kent, who first appeared in Action Comics number 844, was created by Richard Donner, and his name is an homage to Christopher Reeve. And thanks to that jewel kryptonite, the Phantom baby, known as Lord Zod, is able to possess body of Chris Kent, which is a reference to Action Comics number 410. And while we haven't seen the last of Lord Zod or his parents, that's a story for another day. So this was an interesting adventure. Prior to this one, we ran several adventures detailing the births of Superman's various children. And something we tried to do in this one is explain some kids that Superman has where Lois is not the mother. While we could have had Lois and Clark get a divorce, personally, I thought that would be a bummer. So we started talking about the classic alien abduction trope. When these kids would be born in a non-traditional way, we started thinking of the Young Justice cartoon where the clone Superboy was also created from the DNA of Superman and at least one other person, and that Superman didn't really want to act like a father to him at first. And we thought that there was some story potential there. And the fact that Lord Zod was named after Christopher Reeve and he was co-created by Richard Donner, that's just always made me root for the Chris Kent in the comics. I don't really read many comic books these days, but my understanding is that as of me recording this video, Lord Zod is a villain now, which to me seems like the worst thing you could do with a guy named after Christopher Reeve. So in our game, that's not where we are going with this. Also, there was a second Chris Kent introduced in Action Comics 410 who seemed to be the pre-crisis counterpart to Lord Zod. So in our game world, where the pre-crisis and post-crisis stuff coexists in the same world, we felt the need to merge these two characters together. Likewise, by the way, we took a few liberties with Jewel Kryptonite as well. In the pre-crisis era, Jewel Kryptonite allowed someone that's in the Phantom Zone to use a power like telekinesis on Earth. Post-crisis, Jewel Kryptonite is pretty rare, but when we do see it, Agamemnon and the Injustice League used Jewel Kryptonite to quote-unquote possess the bodies of the Happy Harbor era Justice League. So just like with Lord Zod, we are mixing pre-crisis with post-crisis here too. Anyways, so we thought this one was interesting. We hope that you did too. If so, as always, smash that like button. Make sure you're still subscribed. ring the bell for notifications, and leave us a comment. From all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.